what do you think might be the best treatment for schizophrenia?
The best treatment for schizophrenia, I think would be, I think if people just had 3 meals a day, had some water, exercised a lot, they'd be normal.
They should be looked after, but free to live as they wish to.
And it's very sad that we don't have places where people can go and be taken care of, like during the moral era of psychiatry, and during the 1700s and 1800s, when we had hospitals, especially in England, where you could get the kind of treatment that a person like myself or Lauren Mosier would give to somebody who's really disturbed.
And by the way, there's a number of ways of doing therapy that helps.
Not just psychoanalysis.
Not just
psychoanalytic, psychoanalytically oriented.
Old moral treatment helped patients. The recovery rate, this was before psychoanalysis, before modern medication. What did they do? They had very simple principles. First of all, you don't use physical force on the patients. You don't beat them up, which the staff often did for various reasons. Pinel, it was the French Revolution that gave him a hospital. Everybody said that he's the father of modern psychiatry, and patients who'd been sick for years got better, but they didn't tell you how many because it was embarrassing. Most patients got better.
Are there any resentments you have about your treatment from schizophrenia?
Yeah.
Could you share them?
Well, remember, we had we had the end of the Bughausers who beat people up. We had conscientious objectors. If you've never been knocked silly by a conscientious objector, you haven't lived.
I thought that I would never ever see my family again. I thought I was so
a lost
dead, emotionally and mentally. I thought I would never. And here.
And I'm sure there were a lot of people that would have believed you thinking that way.
Oh yes, and you know, probably in the environment we have today, I probably would have ended up exactly what I feared back then.
I think everybody knows he's sick. Every schizophrenic knows how sick he is, how far he is from the center of his own being. I think he knows.
What do you think is the best treatment for schizophrenia?
I don't know, but I would imagine therapy would be helpful to begin with to find out exactly where the core of the problem is.
I think just therapy mostly.
Therapy.
Trying to speak and figure it out. Therapy.
In therapy, you teach them that even bizarre, erroneous perceptions are based on something and make good sense. And you start with where they are. You try to get with them, and you try not to humiliate them. You try not to terrify them, and you try to be on their side.
One of the ways to understand some of the kind of craziness of some of the symptoms, whether it's the voices, the hallucination, visual hallucinations, or some of the bizarre delusions that people have, if you think about how bizarre and off the wall some of our dreams, especially our terrifying dreams, can be, imagine having that experience in your waking life.
Long before any of us became mental health professionals, we knew that people who are starving see food, and that people who are dying of thirst see water. And we didn't need Freud to tell us that these were wish fulfillments. And then we forget all about that and say nobody knows anything about hallucinations, you see. Hallucinations are just exactly like dreams. And since the motivation has to be stronger to do it when you're wide awake, usually, even if they don't give you associations, it's easier to fall back on symbolism and your knowledge of the patient and your general experience for a good clinical guess.
Dr. Dorman would go underneath the delusion. He wouldn't see it as pathological. He would see it as a defense mechanism, as a protective mechanism that I had developed for survival,
What are the universals that we can learn, or that you have learned from Catherine's recovery?
The universals are certainly for the therapist, is never underestimate your patient.
So you really like working with a schizophrenic population?
I do. I do. I
Get a lot out of it?
I enjoy it. I think, yes, it challenges me in ways that, that working with other patients don't. It questions all the way to just the meaning of life.
The goal of therapy is for you to be the most creative, loving, in charge of your own life person you can be. It's not to get over something, it's to become something wonderful that you didn't think you really could be.
To me, that was a great love that Dr. Dorman showed, that those staff, those nurses showed. To see you beyond the shell of your psychosis, but to see the person underneath who has great value.
I used to try various techniques in therapy, and whenever I was open to what my patients were saying, they were saying, I'd just much rather sit and talk with you. I don't need to have a fantasy or free associate or answer questions, or I just need to sit. You're so good when I just sit and talk with you.
It is so incredibly dark and lonely on that plane. I think I said once how cold the wind was blowing above the law.
Of people that you've worked seriously with in psychotherapy, people with schizophrenia, what % would you say have recovered fully and live without medication now?
It's a good question. The problem is that I doubt if I have seen, oh man, I was going to say more than 10 or 20 people in intensive therapy long enough, but almost all of them. Now, for people that I've seen for, say, a small period of time.
A small period of time being?
Well, let's see, in my schizophrenia project, that would be 70 sessions over a 20-month period. I would say 3/4 of them